Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast. This is the third podcast in our test to see how multiple podcasts per week work out. Really want to know what you think about them, so let me know at rob@prepcast.info. Head on over to the website at thepreparednesspodcast.com, and you can find out how to sign up for the weekly preparedness tips and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm kind of skipping through these announcements because I have a feeling that this podcast is going to go a little bit longer than I anticipate. The topic that we're going to be covering is the current economy. Is it getting any better? Before we delve into that topic, though, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce one of the new website sponsors. If you haven't been to the website lately, when you get a chance, head over to thepreparednesspodcast.com and take a look at the advertisers that are on the site. These advertisers are helping to support this show. One of the best ways you can help out supporting this show is to support our advertisers. And the new one we have up on the website is Sun Oven. You can't have been a prepper for too long and not know about Sun Ovens. They are one of the most easiest ways to cook without any sort of fuel. Now, I have to admit, living out here in the Southwest desert, when I first heard of Sun Oven, I thought, well, you know, if I want to cook in the sun, I'll put a pan on the sidewalk and I'll just cook something in it because that's pretty much how hot it is, half of the year. But when I really looked into the Sun Oven, I was really amazed at what it could do. I mean, without any fuel at all, you can bake things. You can also dehydrate and you can pasteurize water. I mean, it's got a lot of things it can do. I'm actually really impressed with this product. I mean, it fills one of those solutions that you need for your preps. And that is, how do I cook without fuel, or how do I cook efficiently? Now, typically, you're looking at storing propane, or maybe storing those little butane bottles, or some other fuel like wood for a wood stove, or you're going to burn campfire, or something like that. Now, imagine being able to cook breads and meat and all sorts of stuff without any fuel whatsoever, just from the power of the sun. And one thing I didn't know is that it doesn't have to be hot outside to cook with the sun. You can cook in the winter. It's not about how hot the air temperature is. It's about how much sunlight is available. So this is one of those products that I really think you should consider about putting into your prep plan as far as a backup cooking solution. So if you're interested in a Sun Oven, and this is one of the things you have already been thinking of, or if you want to find out more information, go to the website, thepreparednesspodcast.com, click on the Sun Oven banner, and you're going to see that, by clicking that banner, you're going to save $65. So check it out. I think it's a really good product, and I think it's something you should consider. Back in October of 2009, podcast episode number 44, way back there, I posed some questions that I came up with to kind of give a guide as to whether or not the economy is getting better or not. These questions were designed to basically allow anybody to take a look at the economy, what's going on around them, and make their own determination without any mainstream media, without any talking heads, without any news outlets, feeding them information. This is something that you can look at yourself and make a determination of how things are going. So it's been a while, nearly 3 years, so I thought we'd revisit that and see how we're doing. We hear that the recession is over and things more or less are hunky-dory because we're not hearing anything about the economy much. You really have to go digging in order to find information about what's going on right now. When I first went over these questions, I just put them out there. I didn't give any answers. I let you answer them. This time, I'm actually going to read them. There are 15 questions, and I'm going to answer them in what I think and what I see is going on. The first one is unemployment going down? No, it's not. It went up. Is the situation improving for the people you know? What I see, not really. The people I know are making adjustments to the new financial reality that they have, which in most cases, it means that they're doing with less. It may seem like they're doing better, but they've actually had to downsize their life. Third question, is the situation improving for you? For me, no. Now, it's not getting any worse, but it's also not getting any better. Are people getting raises? I see some, but what I see is that the company is giving some stiff resistance to actually giving them out. And they're lower than they usually are. Is the foreclosure rate decreasing? Well, I did some research, and in some areas it is. However, in general, foreclosures have been decreasing, but I think this is partially due to the stabilizing effect that we're going through. What I mean by that is that the people and the families that weren't able to make the mortgages have already foreclosed. Those people that are able to hold what they have right now are holding on. Thus, the foreclosure rate is likely to go down simply because of that fact. Are companies hiring back needed personnel? From what I see, no. Are companies hiring again? Kind of, sort of, but not really. They are hiring in limited fashion from what I've seen. They're not paying out the big salaries. They're not hiring in big waves. They're expanding cautiously and slowly. Are house and rental prices trending up? I think it depends. Some areas are doing well, or I should say they're doing better. Those areas that don't have a lot of vacant houses and have nice neighborhoods and low crime rates, I think, are doing well. I think those places that, like Detroit, I don't think there's much going on there. Also, I believe that a lot of people are getting fed up with trying to sell their house, and a lot of people are renting, and so the inventory isn't as much as it used to be. However, I don't think we're seeing a huge trend in this area. Are all the shelves fully stocked at the stores? Now, I was going to say yes, but then I realized that I don't really do the shopping. So I asked my wife, and she basically was telling me that for the most part, they are. Now, keep in mind, these are for the stores that are still left standing. But there's a lot of times she goes to buy a product and it's not there, and it may take 2 or 3 times for her going back to the store, on her regular trips before it actually is there. So a lot of stuff is in stock, but there is a lot of stuff that is not being replaced on the shelves on a regular basis, or as quickly as they once were. Are there many new businesses starting up in your area? My answer is no. Not to say there aren't any new businesses, but basically, I don't see a lot of them. In fact, I can't remember anything that's new that's opened lately. Oh, wait, I can think of one store that has been expanding, and that's Goodwill, which means that they're doing really good business, which means there's a lot of people that are looking for deals on, clothing and everyday items. This tells me that people are not making as much as they used to. They're trying to stretch their dollar. So more Goodwills, yeah, okay, business is expanding for them, but I don't really see that as a good economic indicator. The next question is the U.S. dollar recovering and getting stronger? Yes, but this is mainly because the euro is faltering. Quite honestly, a bad dollar is better than a worthless euro, which is how a lot of investors are looking at this. That doesn't mean that the dollar is stable. It's just more stable than other currencies right now. How about the price of gold? Is the price of gold going down? No. It's gone up, and it's stayed in that $1,600 range. I think that's the new baseline for gold is in the low 1600s. And as we've talked about many times in this podcast, gold is an indicator of the value of the dollar. And with gold sitting at 1600, which is way higher, I mean, it's highest that it's ever been, it's highest that it's ever stayed at, I think that tells us a lot about the state of the economy. Are there less bank closures? Well, actually, yes, there are. From what I count, there's about half as many closures this year as last year. Is the federal government finished with their stimulus plans? Well, so far right now, yes. However, there's a lot of talk of QE3. And given the state of how much debt we're in and what's likely to happen, it's probably going to happen. They're probably going to have to give another round of quantitative easing. Are unoccupied houses being sold? Maybe. There's a lot of houses that are vacant, and as they sit longer and longer, they probably will never be sold again because a house that doesn't have maintenance just falls apart. Okay, so going through the tallies here, I've got 7 no's, 4 maybes, and 4 yeses. So just looking at those numbers, maybe the economy is not doing too bad, but there's a couple other things we can look at. We can look at the poverty rate. Right now, it's the highest rate in 50 years. It's over 15%. That means over 15% of the American people are living in poverty. It's expected that when the new numbers come out in November, this will be 15.7%, up from 15.1%. How about the number of people in government aid? Right now, it's 1 out of 5 Americans. That's more than 67.3 million people in this country are depending on the federal government for assistance. To me, that's a staggering amount of people that are in government assistance, and I think it's very indicative of the state of the economy, regardless of what we're being told on the news or in the papers. And I think we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that we are still in an economic crisis. It may not feel like it. People may have normalized in their conditions, but that doesn't mean things are getting better. The thing we need to remember is that an event like this, an economic crisis or an economic collapse, takes a very long time to occur. It doesn't happen in weeks or months. It happens in years or decades. Not decade, decades. We are probably in a 20-year event. If it started in 2008, that's only 4 years into this 20-year event. So we have to keep in mind that, the economy is not getting better. It's not expanding. It's not improving. Yet it's not really getting bad right now. So where exactly are we? Well, this article that I found on internationalman.com via thesurvivalblog.com is entitled After the Storm. It's written by Jeff Thomas, and I think it does a very good job of spelling out what the crisis is, what are these events that usually happen historically when economies collapse, and it very clearly points out exactly where we are in it. And I think it's rather scary because we're still very much at the beginning of this. Normally, I would just make a reference to this on the website, like I usually do with a lot of the news articles and information pieces I find. But I thought this was important enough to actually go over on the podcast. I'm going to go through the events that Mr. Thomas outlines in his article, but I highly recommend that you go to the site and read the whole article yourself. The easiest way for me to describe how to get there is to go to like Google and do a search for 11 stages of the crash, or After the Storm, International Man, or quite simply, go to the Preparedness Podcast website and go to the blog post for this podcast episode and click on the link that's in that post, because that's where I'm going to put it. Again, I'm going to gloss over the article itself, and I'm just going to focus on the stages of the crash. The first stage is initial crashes. Crash of the residential property market and the commercial property market and the stock market. Stage 2, initial effects of crashes, loss of homes, loss of jobs, inflation. Stage 3, immediate actions by the government, bailouts for selected groups, dramatic increase of debt, politicians going in the opposite direction of a real solution. Now, all 3 of these stages have already happened. No need to deliberate on this point. I think we all understand that. Going forward, this is what we have to watch out for, because he points out that historically these fall pretty much like dominoes. They usually happen in this order. Stage 4 is the second wave of crashes. Another major crash in the stock market, currency plummets, increased bankruptcies and unemployment. Now, this is important. We just went over at the beginning of the podcast how the economy is not improving. It's kind of stagnating right now. It's not doing anything. The people that are having problems, that have been homeless and unemployed for years, still are. They can't improve themselves. Businesses aren't hiring much. New businesses aren't really coming out. This is because we are stuck between stage 3 and stage 4. One of the things I think we need to keep in mind is that, again, events like this take a long period of time, yet when we review them in the history books, time is compressed. You talk about the Great Depression or the Weimar hyperinflation event. We read about them in a few pages or maybe over a course of a couple history classes. The time is compressed. We don't realize that those are decades we're talking about. We're talking about years. And so, we're sitting here between stage 3 and 4, and, we're all hoping that things are getting better, when what we need to be doing is we need to be making sure that we're keeping an eye on the next domino. Stage 5, international trading partners react. Foreign countries refuse to accept more debt. Foreign trade slows dramatically. It's at this point that the government introduces a dramatic change such as ill-conceived protectionism, which backfires on us immediately. That's the sort of thing where they raise tariffs on incoming goods and stuff because they're trying to protect our economy. It never works. Stage 6, government institutes desperate self-destructive measures. Now remember, this has happened before. This is not like some weird science fiction thing. Defaults on debt, restrictive tariffs on imports, and currency controls. Stage 7, the economy reacts in lockstep to the government actions. Hyperinflation, the dramatic increase of food and fuel costs. Massive unemployment, extensive foreclosures, and extensive bankruptcies. At this point, the dominoes start to tumble very quickly, and we see a very rapid unraveling of control. Once that hyperinflation hits, people cannot keep up with the prices. We get a lot of people losing their jobs, losing their houses. Stage 8, systemic collapse, bank closures, extensive homelessness, food and fuel shortages, and electric power becomes sporadic and blackouts are common. As these factors unravel, the public mood turns into a combination of blind fear and rage. Stage 9 is social collapse. Crime rises dramatically. Food riots, tax revolts, squatters' rebellions, which leads way to Stage 10, martial law, the creation of special armies to address domestic terrorism. And he says here, random killings become commonplace. Now, I think all of this is something that we don't want to see happen, but yet this is historical precedence. This has happened before in other places. So it's not like it's fiction that some writer wrote up that, ooh, wouldn't this be kind of crafty to put in a novel? No, we're talking about reality here. This is what happens when the economy crashes. And again, these stages don't happen within days or weeks. They happen within years. Now, towards the end, you're going to have them happen closer and closer together, which is why the next stage that we're waiting for, stage 4, is critically important, because once stage 4 happens, which again is the second wave of crashes, that's going to seem like it's pretty bad. Lots of people are going to be losing money in the stock market, and we're going to be worried about, our finances and stuff. But it's not until we get to stage 7 and we start seeing hyperinflation, unemployment, and foreclosures that we really start to get hit really close to home. Now, the last stage he has is revolution. And he notes that if revolution is to occur, it will happen at this point. Revolution isn't always a good thing. Revolution can bring around communist regimes. We don't want to have just any revolution. We need to make sure that we are prepared and armed for everything that happens here. Preferably, we can vote this out from happening at all. But the amount of debt that we have, the amount of the crisis that is going on in this country right now, I don't know if we can avoid it at this point. And so I wanted to present this to you because it's important to know that right now we are between stage 3 and 4. And we've been sitting here for a year or two, and it seems like everything might be okay. The problem is that second shoe is still yet to fall. I feel that the failing economy is one of the biggest issues that we face as preppers. Though I still hope there's a way for us to avoid this, because this is not something I want to go through. It's not something I want to drag my family through. It's not something I want to see my country go through. And I don't want to see my kids have to pay for the mistakes that we made. For the Preparedness Podcast, I am Rob Hannes. Until next time, enjoy life and stay safe.